There we go. So, well, good morning if you can hear me. I seem to have minimized everything. Here we go. So, good morning, everybody. I see here's people starting to come in now, which is great. Welcome along to another Residential Property Managers Association webinar, which we're getting good feedback from past attendees. We seem to be covering some interesting topics, but that's possibly because we live in interesting times. If you missed last month's webinar, you can jump on the RPMA website and pick up a recording of it. And the same will apply for any of our webinars, including this one. Where are we at now? Yeah, there's a few bodies making it into the room. You'll get sent a link after the webinar as well, so that you can listen to it at your leisure in your car on the way home, which I'm told is an effective way to do it. So we'll give everybody another couple of minutes. Here we go. Welcome, everybody. I hope the weather's being kind where you are in the world or in the country. So this morning we have got a session called Will AI Take My Job? And AI is one of the main buzz concepts, buzzwords, topics of conversation for just about everybody on the planet that's got connectivity. I'm as reticent about AI as I am keen on knowing more, and I'm a great fan that there should be less artificial and more intelligence, but I didn't have to go too far to find somebody who could speak to this, and that is a gentleman called Andy Barker, who is the director of Media Giant, which is a digital marketing company specializing in websites. And I know Andy through my business, and he certainly knows an awful lot of stuff. In fact, so much stuff that I just don't feel I can catch up. So this morning, Andy is going to take us through what some people see as a threat to their job and some people see as an enhancement to their work. He's going to talk to you today about artificial intelligence. Andy, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you, Richard. So the question for the day is, will AI take my job? And so when we put that in the capsulation around property management as a whole, my opinion of that answer is no. The simple thing is there's still elements of the job that absolutely have to be done by humans, that also humans will only interact with other humans for. But that all comes with a caveat. So AI these days are replacing aspects of jobs or making parts easier. So will AI take my job? My answer is no, but it will definitely change it. So most of us are obviously a little bit familiar with some basic aspects of AI. Everybody would have heard of ChatGPT, which has obviously made some headlines in the last kind of 2 years. And then that's known as a large language model. We have numerous of those coming out. You've got Lambda, you've got Gemini from Google, you've got the Chinese coming on board with DeepSeek, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of different AI models. And these are nothing new. Large language models have been around for a number of years. They've just gained in popularity over the last 2 to 3, given the public accessibility to them and just how large in scale they have got. But when we talk about AI and AI in a workplace, we don't always talk about those large language models as a whole. AI has been around for a number of years, particularly when we talk about these sorts of tool sets. And it falls into place with a bunch of different things that we may have already come across. Some of us may have heard about things like Zapier in the past, which is workflow engines allow us to connect one item to another. For example, you can connect your Google Sheets to Xero, so you can automatically send out invoices to a bunch of clients. or you could connect your website to social media so that when you posted a blog on your website, it automatically created a social media post. And in an essence, that's actually been AI behind the scenes. Obviously things have got a bit smarter over the last few years is how we now introduce and bring in those large language models in the mix of that as well. And where that becomes really powerful and key is when we look at aspects of business and what we can do about automating that. So I'm going to talk about a few things that we do in our own business that might help some context. And then I'm going to come back and relay that back into some aspects for property management. So we've been in business a little over 7 years now, and we deal with three kind of major pillars in our business. One of those is websites. We deal with website design, website development. We build out large page websites for designed specifically for the search engine to hopefully get people to rank better, and a whole bunch of aspects in that kind of place. And I'm going to touch on that in a minute as to why that's key around AI. Another aspect of our business is the search engine itself. So SEO or SEM, search engine optimization, and search engine marketing. Now, both of those, again, have had massive overhauls with the use of AI, and I'll touch into those very shortly. The last pillar of our business is social media. So we do a lot around Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, with video and video generation in order to obviously educate and that brand piece, mostly for most customers, going, well, I shop at Harvey Norman because they're the ones that feed me the most information versus Noel Leeming or JB Hi-Fi. It's because they nurture me with their branding. Now, again, AI plays a big part in that. So in our heyday, we used to have 8 staff. We had 2 full-time content writers, we had 3 website designers, we had an account manager, we had a sales manager that was constantly ringing up and cold calling. I had myself as one director and our other director, Ryan, who does most of our creative stuff, and then a little bit of support staff, as well as about half a dozen contractors to help with overflow. Our business now contains 4 staff. So there's myself and Ryan as the 2 directors, and we are working in the business. We have 37 and a half hours a week website designer who keeps the lights on with all of our website content. And then we have a contractor who comes and helps us with overflow for the photography and videography side. Yet we are actually delivering more work than we used to before. And this is down to AI. And it's where we get to the point of saying AI is not going to take my job, but it's going to help. So how is that related and how has that kind of worked? So when we look at, and I'll again relate back to our business as digital marketing in the first instance, and we'll cross-relate this back to property management shortly. But when we look at the likes of our business, we used to have 2 full-time content writers. So when we build out a website, and if I pick on a dentist as an example, it's an easy example. We all know we need to go to the dentist. And typically speaking, we're going to see them 2 to 3 times a year for some hygiene cleans and your general checkups. But what happens in the world of Google when we looked at how to basically get people to rank their websites is we would have to look at a website and go, you can't have your home, your about, your services page, and contact. A 4-page website wasn't enough. Listing every single service a dentist does on a single page doesn't work. Same with a property manager. If we try and say, hey, look, we're a property manager based in the Hawke's Bay, we manage properties, and here's how you get in touch with us. It doesn't answer the question for what the end user is looking for as to why they help out, why they rank. So we used to have 2 content writers that would sit there, pull apart every service your business offers. And if you think of the dentist as that example, they do crowns, they do veneers, they do teeth whitening, they do braces in a lot of cases. They've got dental fillings, there's the exams, there's the hygiene, there is every service under the sun. What we ended up doing when we build those sites for those people is we create a 30 to 40-page website. Now that might sound extreme, but if I'm looking for specifically veneers, then the idea is that basically that page is what actually ranks and shows us that content. And that meant we used to have 2 full-time staff members sitting there reading all that content, researching the different industry pieces, and then writing out all of that page content on a very regular basis. So we had two employees with English degrees, even though one was actually a Hungarian national, but wrote better English than I do, has now actually been fully replaced by AI. And I don't just mean, hey, ChatGPT, go and write me a 300-page Word document on veneers. This is a series of different tool sets that will research the language that we write in, how we use our own style for customers. So how I communicate as a business, how we like our sales language, taking our data that we've produced over the last 5, 10 years of marketing collateral, but also researching who is the target market, who are the people that want veneers. And then typically speaking, for example, that's not your 21-year-olds. It's your 40s to 50s. We're starting to get to that point of discretionary income. We've paid off mortgages or getting close to, and we're looking at those little wee things that's going to help us in our own personal well-being and value of self. So it's researching that different market space, getting all that information together, and then producing some rich content for it. And that's now all done in a matter of about 5 minutes. Whereas a project like that might have taken one of our content writers a best part of 2 weeks to generate the same thing. So your content space is one of the easiest that obviously we've dealt with AI in that space. But there really comes hugely powerful is what we talk about when we look at automation. And automation, and I touched on this earlier with some tool sets that have been around for a while, like Zapier or Microsoft Flow, if you've got 365 as two examples in that space, where we can interconnect different pieces of kit together and tell them to do different actions. And where that's kind of increased and got a little bit smarter is what we can do now with the use of AI. And I'm going to share a screen here for a second uh, and showcase this one here. So this is an application called N8N, which you may or may not be familiar with. This is a workflow toolset, and it's similar to Zapier. There's another one that's a little bit simpler to use called make.com. And then this is N8N, which is a little bit more advanced. It requires a little bit of code knowledge in this space. But it's a great example of showcasing how we can use AI and get that thought process going of what we can do to make things a little bit simpler. And in this particular example, I have a customer of ours called Packaging Products who sell boxes, tape, bubble wrap, you name it, anything you need to package up any goods for your business. They sell the supplies. They have an e-commerce website that's got around about 3,500 different products on it. And we're helping them at the moment with a campaign to manage some social media and to automate some of this for them. And I'm going to walk you through this and why this is really important, and how this can then relate back to your property management businesses. So this particular workflow is just this. It takes a product on a schedule. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, it goes and runs a schedule, and it has a random timer there, somewhere between 8 and 5 p.m. It'll automatically run this on Monday to Friday, weekdays. It goes and reads a list of products we've got here from a Google Sheet. So we've crawled their website and said, here are your 3,500 products. We've gone through with the customer and said, actually, this is the 2,800 that we actually want to promote, where there's some things like they sell high vis and footwear and stuff that they don't really have any margin on, etc. So we went, well, let's not talk about promoting those. And then we have a series of different tasks we do. As an example, in this case, it goes and selects a random product from that particular spreadsheet. And then what we actually do behind each of these things is we've got a little bit of smarts. So this particular request here will go and get the product URL from the spreadsheet after it's selected the random product, and it goes and finds their product description. Now, in this case, I'm going to bring up their Facebook page to show you an example of this actual product. because it's a little bit more powerful once you see the actual product here. It goes and downloads their particular product. Now, this is actually what it's going and reading. A very nondescript product for brown tape. Absolutely thrilling. But this in a purpose means nothing. If I posted this on social media, it's not engaging. It requires someone to interact with this, take that content, and actually manipulate it before it goes out on their website. So what we're doing is we go and select the product at random, request the information off the website. So the AI here is actually going and reading the title, reading all of this description, and downloading the image from the product. And then it's extracted that data out to give us just the pieces we care about. And then here's where the secret sauce comes in. So where these workflow tools come in really, really powerful is we can combine these with those large language models like ChatGPT in this instance here. This is using OpenAI ChatGPT. And this is what we might already be familiar with. Our general prompting when we open up chat and say, hey, I want to write a Facebook post for this particular product. And then we're passing through some of those product titles, descriptions, and the URL. And we're saying, hey, I want you to go and create an engaging post from that, including the URL, a maximum of 75 words, and write it in English New Zealand. And what that actually ended up resulting in is it takes this and creates this. Far more engaging, far more pointy. We can modify the prompt and do things like don't use emojis, make it more Gen Z, make it more sales related if we wanted to, or educational. But that particular piece of content was completely generated without any human interaction. And so when we look at the likes of how things like AI play in the workplace, it's about looking at what we can use in the role to automate things for your business. So when we relate that to property management, AI is not going to replace a property manager. We still have to represent people at the disputes tribunal. There are still complex negotiations we have to do face to face. There are still things like, okay, admittedly, we do have voice AI, etc., but it's a bit limited in its current format for chasing down rent arrears. We can get AI to make phone calls at the moment. It's not quite there. Another 6 to 12 months, and it'll be what we kind of look for. But there are aspects of the role where we can take care of some of that maintenance and the things we do inside our business. Now, there's obviously a lot of different CRMs and tool sets designed specifically for property management at the moment around helping assist things like maintenance repairs, etc. But we can take those steps further. So where things like AI come into really big, powerful stuff is the use of automated chatbots. And we're not talking about your basic chatbots that are, hey, I've got a quick question. How do I cancel? How do I do this? Or what's it cost? It's actually where we can feed in all of your standard operating procedures, what's included in your rental percentage fees or your fixed charges you do, all the different kind of things behind the scenes, basically provide your training manuals you give to new property managers, feed that into a custom AI for yourself, and actually have that presented back to both your property owners and your prospective tenants when they're asking questions. And then combine that with those large language models, and it can think a little bit more outside the square. So if someone asks a disjointed question, or if they use intelligent language, like we get a lot of people saying, use is a very common thing. Use have taken my money. Use didn't show up for my property inspection. I don't know if you've ever experienced that one, but it's certainly a large piece I've seen across New Zealand's slang, where your typical chatbot may break down on those sorts of things. The large language models can help assist with that intelligent piece. And it's very similar in that nature to what you saw there with take the raw data from the website, wrap it with some nice text, and then that's what the large language model is then pushing out to social media for that particular example. Same goes with things like leads. If you aren't using a CRM, or if you are, for example, having a lead come in via the website, having it qualify them, having it go and find out some research, having it automatically look at the properties you have in your portfolio in the same neighborhoods that meet the same stats, depending on how many questions you ask and things like your contact forms. You can have all of that qualify and actually draft emails, either automated or have them sit there in your drafts to go back to a new perspective, saying, "Hey, thanks Andy for your rental or appraisal for this. Before we even come see your place, you said it's 180 square meters, it's 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom. I'm in Wallaceville in Upper Hearts. The average rent for that might be $580 a week. You guys will obviously know that a lot better than I would. But here's our kind of ballpark. We'd love to arrange a time to come and see you," and putting them into funnels for automated follow-ups until they turn and take action. And then the other sort of stuff we can have a look at is any of those sort of automation pieces where we can chase down people for rent arrears with text messages, phone calls, emails, compliance monitoring. Automation is the next major step we're seeing in the use of AI, where we had our automated workflows before, but they were very linear, very basic in the sense of connecting 1, 2, 3, 4 different systems together. But now, obviously, we can use the large language models in the mix to go and create additional pieces of content or use that thought process to help overcome some of those goals. And then all the way down to if you want to start looking at where the future's going, there's absolutely the opportunities for things like AI to start help with inspections. I could ask a tenant to take a series of photos based on a criteria of each room, and then AI could automatically relate that back to what was in the original photos that we took when the property was on board originally, and go, well, hang on a minute, we can actually see that curtain's come off its rod. These are the 6 things. There's this hole in the door and this carpet that's been done, and a report being generated automatically, all for you in that kind of space. So it's an incredibly fast-paced overview, as to give you an idea. But the simple answer when I get asked a direct question and I relate that to property management specifically, is AI going to replace your job? The answer is no. There are far too many elements of the job that are still human-based, that require that face-to-face contact, that require things like representation at disputes tribunal, that require those extra complex pieces that would either take too much to code out or too long to train an AI on. But is it going to simplify the job? Absolutely. Like anything, it's onboarding a new CRM, jumping into something like Tappy. All of those things require some form of setup, a bit of teething issues to go through the calibration of it. But once they're up and running, you can notice the significant difference to what that means to daily, weekly, monthly tasks.
I guess when I hear the word automation, I think it's taking the personal, the human contact kind of thing away from a transaction. But I did a wee bit of research myself before we did this session this morning. And I think the word that stood out for me was that AI can only replace things that are predictable. And it has been my experience, and probably the experience of everyone that's come along this morning who's in the property management industry. It's been my experience that property management is not predictable.
No.
It's highly unpredictable and sometimes highly risky. So yeah, I can't see AI taking over that part of the job. But if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat window or flick us a message now. But I think that you've given me a few ideas for our website, funnily enough, which yeah, you'll need to get to work on.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Well, I thought you would know what you were talking about with this, and you've given me a lot of clarity. I'm hoping everybody else that's listening to this is getting some clarity from it, because I've been resistant to AI, probably because I didn't understand it fully, and I've got a better grasp of it today. Initially from my research, but also from you, Andy. So
Well, there's also, while we wait for any questions to come through, there's a whole aspect of AI, which is the generative AI. So you touched on using it for content or helping assisting with some of those things with the large language.
Yeah.
But there's always the extra around generating marketing collateral and that sort of stuff now
Oh,
as well. Video. And if you've kept up to play with the latest on ChatGPT in the last wee while, OpenAI have made a significant milestone in generating images with text in particular. There's the ability to take a photo of a property, for example, drop it into ChatGPT and say, create me a nice background with these brand colors, put this address on it or whatever. And there goes a post for social media saying property to rent. And it will generate all of that without having to have Canva or a graphic designer, Photoshop, InDesign, etc.
wow.
You can have all that generated for you. Same goes with video. The video stuff is, in my opinion, still in a bit of an infancy. But about 20% of the stuff we're creating now for people's social media is actually fully AI 20-second long videos that's either product explainers or other bits and pieces. I have two pets, two sausage dogs, two dachshunds. And to give you an idea of what you can do, I sent two photos of those to AI, and it generated a video for Christmas time that we sent out in an e-card to everybody that showcased these two coming down the chimney like they were Santa Claus. Um, and it looked like them. Oh, we
So
got some questions.
you mentioned something about finding out more about what new developments are coming in with AI. Is there, let's say, just one website or online service that you would suggest a newbie like me goes to do a bit of catching up?
Oh, look, there's heaps around the place. OpenAI is probably your industry leader. Everybody else will surpass them, but they come back and come over the top of it. So OpenAI is your ChatGPT.
Hmm.
They've got quite a robust blog, and so they obviously release stuff inside there, and including they've released a new model. ChatGPT 5 is on its way. ETA is June, which is going to combine everything we've seen together in one, um, and make it just that much more on steroids. But aside from those sorts of things, believe it or not, I get a lot of it from TikTok.
Oh, the one social media channel I avoid.
And the
Excellent.
reason I
Yeah.
get it from there is there's people that make it into bite-sized 30-second content and go,
Nice.
this is what's new, this is the highlight, and then here is you go off and do your further research in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're not being flooded with questions, but I do note that almost all of the people that came along at the start of this are still here and still listening. So you've obviously been very engaging.
There is a
Yeah,
couple of questions there, Richard. I can answer that the
you
first
go
one.
for it.
So with the growing use of AI platforms like ChatGPT and property management, what risks we have in the way of data security and compliance to the Privacy Act? I won't finish reading the rest of the question, but there are two major camps you can deal with this, and that's really quite clever. So you've got when you look at large language models like ChatGPT, you can use them in the cloud, like we do now, chat.openai.com or DeepSeek, etc. But there is also the ability to use these locally. So there is a little few steps you've got to go through to configure this, and you can either have this on scale if you wanted to have a large language model. You can do that with the use of things like Amazon Web Services, etc., where it's your data, your configuration, or you can literally run them on your own computer. And depending on how robust and uh, grunty it is, it will limit on how much resources you have. And what that means is we can actually self-contain it. So you hold your data sovereignty. It's only you. It's not sharing any information to the internet. It purely and simply what you feed into it, it only knows about, plus what it's been originally trained on. And that's actually how we can get around some of that stuff inside there. The Privacy Act in particular is a bit overdue for overhauls for AI. But for example, things like the New Zealand government have a start policy against it, and DIA are working on actually developing one of those local AIs, where they can have it for centralized governments, as an example. And we can do that on a smaller scale for individuals.
Nice.
Then we've got questions from tenants following up outstanding rent, work orders, tradespeople, and following up communication owners. These are the challenges. How do you see AI working for this, and which system will you, in which systems will be the one to work with? So that's the sort of stuff that we can put some workflow-based stuff to. I'm a personal fan of N8N, but I come from an IT and coding background, so I can get the most out of the platform given the extra bit of skill sets that I have. Otherwise, things like Zapier or Make.com do make those things a bit easier. And really, they are basic workflow-based things. So if we have a question a tenant can't answer, be it submitted by a contact form on your website or an email or a chatbot, we can pull those in, pull the data out, and go through those series of actions, but then feed it to that large language model, Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever you might choose to use. And we can do that with your trained data as well to then provide those answers back. And at any point in time, those workflows, we can have breakpoints for human interaction. So I've got a lot, for example, that run through my own email, and it reads my emails, it goes through, and then it flags the stuff for me that I need to have a look at. So when I get up in the morning, this is the 6 things I need to do. This is the urgent ones. This is the stuff that can wait till later in the day. And a couple of really stringent rule sets, it will automatically reply on my behalf. And that's where we start looking at it. But the piece there, David, to have a look at is go down the deep rabbit hole on YouTube called AI agents. That's the space that will help automate those tasks. And start small, make it simple, and then build upon it, build upon it, and build upon it. My largest workflow, that packaging products one, was quite small. My largest workflow has 184 nodes.
Good Lord, that's a large rabbit hole.
Indeed.
So, okay, well, hey, look, good answers and good questions, guys. That's I thought this might stir up a bit of sediment from the bottom there. So we're constantly offered software that's going to automate everything and make our lives so much easier. And a lot of it works and a lot of it doesn't work. It depends on your approach, I think. So hey, thank you very much, Andy. That was fantastic. I have learned a lot, and it's handy that you're in the same geographical location as I am, because I need to pick your brains a wee bit further. So for those of you who are still here, next month we're doing a webinar titled "Developing a Rate Card for Common Work Orders," and that is actually possibly a subject for an AI to go over and compile you a list of work order rate cards. So come along, sign up next month for the session, and we will see you there. Otherwise, if we've got no more questions, and I'm not seeing anything popping up, thanks again, Andy.
Welcome.
And we shall call it a day. You can go and put the jug on and get a chocolate biscuit and get back into property management. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.